If you've been trying to heal your gut and have tried the 5R protocols or cleaned up your diet and added the probiotics or the leaky gut supplements, and maybe you felt better for a while, but you either stalled or slipped right back into your symptoms, it's likely not because you did the protocol wrong, but rather your gut does not operate in silos. I'm Dr. Kenny, an IFM certified functional medicine practitioner, and mapping out what other functional body systems are keeping your gut health stuck is a huge part of what I do every day with patients. In this video, I'm walking you through why the protocols stall and what the gut is actually signaling when it does. Here's what I see consistently in my practice. Someone who comes in and they've likely seen many practitioners, both conventional and functional. They've probably removed gluten and dairy and done the cleanses and elimination diets, and of course the supplement stacks. And things may be improved for a short while in their symptoms, but after a few weeks, something shifts and they come back. Or maybe there's new symptoms that pop up as well. And the questions that linger often are, did I do something wrong? Did I miss something? Or do I need a stricter version of the same approach? The answer almost always is no for my patients. It's not that the approach itself was wrong. The sequencing is often the big issue. And what I mean by sequencing is this. Let's ground in the 5R protocol. If you've been in the functional medicine space for some time, you've probably come across some variety of this clinical framework. And it really is solid for addressing gut concerns in isolation. More to follow on that. We'll do a rapid fire here. The first R is for remove. Here you want to get rid of any of the bad things that are contributing to dysregulation in the gut. Think pro-inflammatory foods, or maybe hidden infections like parasites or microbiome overgrowths. Next R is replace. You want to replace what is likely missing or underperforming in the gut. For many people, this looks like digestive enzymes, for instance. The third R is reinoculate. Here we're turning our focus to the organisms in the gut, and we want to support the good guys to crowd out the bad guys. Next is repair. This is where the conversation turns to leaky gut type supplements. We want to repair and restore and provide nutrition so that the gut lining can heal and that integrity can be sealed. And then lastly is rebalance. You look at the rest of the details and you finesse your way all the way to a happy, healthy gut. That's the 5R protocol in a nutshell. And oftentimes it's stuck to pretty religiously or legitimately. Many good practitioners will also bounce around depending on what's needed at the time. Where the 5R protocol falls short is honoring the complexity of the body outside of the gut, because your gut responds to many other signals that are not just about gut health alone. Many of the things that keep chronic gut-related conditions in that vicious cycle often live in the systems outside of the gut. And if those upstream questions have not been answered or supported, the 5R protocol can work, and sometimes it works temporarily or for blocks of time. So if the upstream underlying drivers are not addressed, a 5R protocol may work, again, in the short term. You can repair the lining, you can support the microbiome, replace the digestive enzymes. But if the environment that these sources, these tools are entering has not changed, the results likely feel partial or they don't stick. And that's the story I see over and over again. So let me give you a specific example and a clearer picture of what's happening inside of the gut as it relates to the systems outside of the gut. Because the way this is often taught leaves out some of the most important parts. Think of your gut lining in particular as a dimmer switch, not as an on or off switch. And the gut lining oftentimes comes to this conversation of leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability. Essentially, we require integrity of our gut lining because this represents a major interface between self and non-self, or the gut lining and our bloodstream. So there's a well-documented phenomenon that our gut is constantly opening and closing and regulating the openness of our gut to allow for absorption of nutrients. Ideally, it stays within a certain window where only certain nutrients are allowed in, but it keeps the bad guys and the toxins and the similar things out. Your gut barrier does not suddenly flip from intact to broken in a blink of an eye. You don't just go from no leaky gut to leaky gut. The level of permeability is constantly being adjusted up and down in response to what the whole system is managing at any given time. So think stress chemistry, immune system signals, the nervous system's tone, like through the vagus nerve, inflammatory inputs from food, and even toxins from organisms that should be kept under control in the microbiome. All of these are inputs that affect the dimmer switch. So when the cumulative load or the burden of these inputs exceeds what the system can actually adapt to, this is where your gut becomes and stays more permeable. The tight junctions, which are the cells that keep the gut wall together, almost like a zipper effect, open in response to this cumulative load or burden of inflammatory signals. So gut permeability should really be thought of more as a signal or a progress report, not the malfunction itself. It's reacting to what's going on further upstream in the body. So when a patient comes in to see me, and they sometimes bring labs from previous practitioners, and they show me their elevated zonulin marker and say, I was given supplements for leaky gut. Zonulin is a protein that is released when your tight junctions are opening, and it's a very loose marker for leaky gut, unfortunately not super clinically validated at this time. But my question usually turns away from, is leaky gut present or not, and do we give them supplements, to why is the gut leaking in the first place, and what combination of factors may be involved. This is the question shift that often yields very different answers and approaches to what's driving that immune response in the gut. And this is something that surprises a lot of people when we start to talk about intestinal hyperpermeability or leaky gut. One of the most commonly missed upstream drivers is not some hidden infection or hidden toxin or bacteria. It's often stress chemistry, and I use the phrase stress chemistry very specifically. If you've heard me talk about this in my videos in the past, there's good reason. When researchers reviewed the full chain of events that chronic stress triggers in the gut, what they found was not some vague, hard to identify features. Chronic stress structurally alters the gut barrier. It increases permeability, and it is validated across multiple large studies. It alters your enteric nervous system as well, the nervous system that controls your gut function, like motility or digestive enzyme secretion or acid secretion in the stomach. And it dysregulates the microbiome as well. It can shift the good guys and the bad guys in areas that are not serving your gut integrity and resilience in the long run. What this means clinically is pretty straightforward, but it has enormous consequences for sequencing when it comes to addressing gut health. If your stress chemistry burden across the body is still active, and again, I use stress chemistry deliberately because we're not just talking about emotionally perceived stress, but rather all of the things inside and outside of the body that contribute to stress chemistry or activate cortisol. If those things are still active, then rebuilding the gut lining with a 5R protocol and giving you microbial supplements and similar to a system that is not shifted yet is really just putting on another Band-Aid treatment. You cannot override a stressed out nervous system that is still running in the chemistry of distress that leaches and shifts all of these things from the top down inside of your gut. And we're talking again, microbiome, digestive power, and even the nervous system tone in the gut. I'm not saying that stress chemistry is the only driver, but it is a major one. And that if you complete a repair protocol or a 5R protocol in full and you don't fully resolve, this is one of the first things to turn back and look at. And by the way, if you'd like to walk through the research behind what I just walked through, including the specific mechanisms, I put together a free research summary that's in the pinned comment and the description below. It also includes some questions to help you think about how this might apply to your situation. So check that out. And I'm genuinely curious if you've been through a gut protocol or one of these 5R specific experiences and hit a wall. What did your practitioner say about the next step for you? And did it help move the needle in a big way? Drop it in the comments below. I read every one of them, and it helps other people to see their stories reflected in yours too, if you're willing to share. So let's talk a little more specifically about the mechanism between stress and tight junctions, just so you understand this a little bit deeper. Your body has a built-in stress command center, and it's called the HPA axis. This is basically the communication center between the brain and the adrenal glands, and it modulates and oversees our stress response. And some of the signaling molecules involved in this stress response directly disrupt the intestinal lining, and it increases the permeability. It also activates two particular immune cells that you may be familiar with. Number one, mast cells, the other neutrophils. These keep the inflammatory environment or signal turned on locally at the gut, and this is what helps to release or open up those tight junctions. This is why supplements like glutamine or other barrier support supplements are useful, but they also have a ceiling, especially in the context of high stress chemistry. Glutamine supports the gut wall and the repair. It's one of the main proteins or amino acids that's involved in repairing the gut lining. But the stress command center is also actively drawing resources away from it, including glutamine specifically. So let me be very precise about what I'm saying in this video as well. I'm not saying that a 5R protocol is wrong. It's a wonderful tool and framework that's sanctioned by the Institute for Functional Medicine, and it's clinically sound. The interventions within it, reducing inflammatory load, restoring digestive capacity, supporting the microbiome, and supporting tissue repair, these are legitimate steps that should be taken in a gut healing protocol. But this 5R protocol is not meant to be rigid, and it's not meant to be used in isolation, even if gut health symptoms are your only complaint. The patients that I see who've been through the rounds of the antibiotics or herbal antimicrobials and the elimination diets and the strictest dietary interventions are the ones who are often still stuck at the end of the day. They're not stuck because of the gut health experiences more often than not. When we do deeper testing and look at the systems that influence gut health, this is something that yields the greatest results in most of my patients. Because when you don't have the floor of resilience supporting you through your hormones and your immune system and your nervous system, the gut health interventions just become that much less predictable. A recent 2024 review mapped out the inputs that actually drive intestinal barrier disruption, things like oxidative stress or microbiome imbalance, and the dietary triggers and toxin exposures. And they traced how that disruption connects to inflammation that's going on in other places of the body, as well as autoimmune conditions. It's worth noting that this kind of review maps out the terrain quite well, but it can't always tell us which driver to address first, given each individual patient. That's where systems thinking and clinical judgment are really an important piece of this puzzle. So what does an upstream investigation actually look like? Here's a brief map that I use for most patients across the board, depending on how they present. When I see a patient who's done all of this gut health work and hasn't made predictable progress, the first category I'm often looking at is that stress chemistry piece. Not as necessarily a genetic factor, although those are sometimes involved, but as something that is measurable and physiological that we can actually put objective data to. A big question that comes up if you've never seen this one before, and I'll do another video on this, is catabolic physiology. Under stress chemistry, the body often shifts to more of a breakdown dominant state where we are leaching from our gut lining, like the glutamine we talked about. Even bone resorption, such as osteopenia and osteoporosis. Resources for healing and repair are being diverted towards survival rather than truly shifting the body into a repair mode. And that has huge implications in gut health. The second category of theme that comes up is often immune system burden, not just the local gut immune activation, but really the broader picture. Is there an unresolved infection, something protozoan, or maybe an opportunistic overgrowth in the microbiome, candida, or even a post-viral syndrome, like with Epstein-Barr virus or COVID-19? This is often where there's sustained immune activation that the gut can't truly step down from. The third category is toxic load or burden, all the way from mold toxicity to other environmental toxins, even from the foods that we eat or the pesticides that we're exposed to in our food supply. The fourth system for line of questioning is often an energy or hormone capacity. A body that has been depleted from an energy or metabolic standpoint cannot truly shift into prioritizing tissue repair and balance in the microbiome. The gut doesn't necessarily get the resources that it needs. And part of that comes from the cells, like the mitochondria, the other from the hormones and safety signals from hormonal resilience. None of these categories or lines of questioning is automatically present in each and every case. Individuality matters, and a good functional medicine practitioner will recognize that. We are a sum of our lived experiences, and even if you have only gut-related symptoms, it's worth looking into the ones that may matter most based on your individual lived experiences. This is what I mean by the gut doesn't operate in silos. By the time your gut is often sending signals, the conversation is usually about mapping out the relationships between the nervous system and stress chemistry and the immune system signaling, as well as your metabolic capacity. The gut is one of the most readable or obvious interfaces that we have for that broader picture as well. So when you treat the gut in isolation, even with a well-designed R protocol, you're often just reading the downstream signals from what's going on higher up that's affecting your gut. If what we've covered today resonates with you and your story, and you're in one of the states that I practice, check out the free training below. It prepares you for a health mystery map call with me to see if my approach to functional medicine matches up with your next step in healing goals. Now, perhaps the most overlooked terrain driver in patients who are stuck going around the gut protocol wheel is often mold. And what does mold and mycotoxin exposure actually do inside the gut environment? And why does it get missed so frequently, even in functional medicine spaces? That's exactly what this video goes over here, so check it out. I'm Dr. Kenny, Root Cause Health Detective. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.